You haven't changed, have you? But I have. Steve, you're going to put in my system whether you like it or not.
I doubt it.
You forget. What I create, I can destroy.
Double cheers.
You beat me.
It's bad change for me. It's bad change for me, sir. Kind sir.
Okay, Brendan, you owe us $5 each.
Brendan, you have to work 2 jobs to pay us $5 each. Hello.
Good evening. Welcome to the Malcontents.
Are you?
I'm Steve Freyette. This is Joe Gamble.
It is. Still. Haven't changed a thing. What is this? Is it a nervous tick?
I was watching
The Oscars are stupid, by the way.
I watched I watched Pulp Fiction last night.
You watched Pulp Fiction last night.
Yeah, and the scene with Bruce Willis, where he's like getting ready to go into the boxing match and he does the thing. You know, like any boxer, that's how they stretch their muscles and get loosened up to go in. They do this weird neck jerk thing.
So that's what that is.
Yeah.
Like getting ready for the show. All right. Got your. You got to bang your boxing gloves together. Yeah. Options. Endless options endlessly. I prefer simplicity, but nobody's asking me. Well, no. Like, I agree with you. That's me. Endless options endlessly. Does that remind you of a particular amplifier? It was released this week?
Yeah.
The Mach 7?
The Mach 7. Well, I think that there was the whole thing about multiple features, multi-featured amps, the whole thing about that wasn't anybody's original idea. It was, well, we sort of touched on this a little bit, but when I was designing and imagining and designing and developing the first Pitbull, the prototype, well, we had it here. We opened it up. You guys saw it.
Yeah.
Pull pots and pull switches everywhere, blah, 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 blah. That wasn't because I was trying to make an amp with all these features that you could play with.
Right.
Though that was a test bed.
Right.
And you had all these push buttons so that you could try different tonalities and different combinations of tonal shaping devices to see how they would play together.
Yes.
Well, having those pull switches and buttons and things, those for me sort of arose out of the fact that the very first Mesas that came out had a couple of those, you know, mainly the main thing was that one was for boost.
Well, wait, it's probably worth while mentioning right now that you were servicing these amps from basically from the beginning.
Yeah.
The Mesas.
Yeah.
Yeah, the early Mesas.
Yeah.
So you were inside these things from the beginning and watching them evolve.
Right. And the pull pots at that time were really basically one for a boost and one for bright.
It was kind of like the Princeton, and then here's the next
Yeah,
stage of gain.
But it was basically built on a Princeton chassis
Mm-hmm.
originally, a Mark One,
Yeah.
but it had more knobs on it,
Mm.
so it didn't have this sort of cosmetically pleasing spacing between jacks and controls and things, because they were just trying to max out getting as many knobs on there as to control everything in this tight little chassis.
Yeah.
So you had to use pull pots because you didn't want to give away space to have a slide switch like the original Princeton had a little slide switch for the bright. All the Fenders have a
Yeah.
slide switch for bright.
Yeah.
So you put that on a pot so that you would have more panel space to put more pots.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Rivera's amps came out, he kind of went nuts with all these pull pots and switches, and he built those into the designs ostensibly to give the users options.
Mm-hmm.
And Mesa started adding more and more pull switch functions to accomplish the following: to take a really basic amplifier topology that was kind of one basic topology, which was a clean amp,
Mm-hmm.
a Fender amp,
Yeah.
and then graft overdrive into it.
Yeah.
But you can't just graft overdrive into it.
So
You
how
have-
did they get the boost in the Mark One?
by disconnecting the tone controls from the circuit.
And then the Mark II was kind of dropping in almost like a pedal.
Well, it was
Circuitry,
it
like
was
an
a similar
overdrive.
thing, except instead of the Mark One, when you pulled the switch, it just disconnected the tone stack from ground, which made it effectively passive.
Uh-huh.
And then the later models had the pull boost also, but it didn't completely disable the tone controls because people wanted to use the tone controls. But it about 50% disabled the tone controls, so they worked less, but at least you could say they did something.
All right.
Rivera was modding deluxes and Princetons and stuff for the session guys, for the Wrecking Crew guys, who were playing a gazillion sessions all the time, and they wanted little gear to get in and out of the sessions to go to the next session, and they'd play on a movie soundtrack, a toothpaste commercial, a Beach Boys song, a Sonny and Cher song, a Barbra Streisand song, and this would just like, this is what would be going on. But guys like, Louis Shelton would bring a 52 Telly and a Rivera modified Princeton to the gig. And he could play jazz, he could play rock, he could play surf, he could play whatever with that rig.
Uh-huh.
Because he was a really highly developed, skilled guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
Like Tommy Tedesco and all those guys. So Rivera was doing the same thing, taking a little amp like a Deluxe or a Princeton and adding more functions and features, meaning that the switches were getting in the way. So he would drill more holes in the panel to put more pots, and then you'd have to put a pull pot for a switch to get gain boost. He had a fat switch. He called it a fat switch. He also called it shift, and then there was a master volume, and they all came at a cost, at a trade-off. The Rivera pull shift evolved into a 5-position fat switch.
Okay.
That as you turn it to the right, it would get progressively more mid-range overbearing or mid-range heavy.
Uh-huh.
Same kind of thing but a different execution, but the same kind of outcome. The more fat you turned it up, the more you'd progressively basically bypass the tone stack
Mm-hmm.
to where the tone controls really didn't do anything. And the pull boost stole some gain from the reverb driver circuit and fed it back into the phase inverter to throw more gain at the phase inverter. In the process, the reverb level dropped way down.
Interesting.
And then when he went to Fender, the Fender engineers looked at it and went, okay, we get what's the sonic outcome that you're trying to achieve with this, but we don't want to have to deal with people bitching that the tone controls don't work, the reverb goes away, this kind of stuff. So the engineering guys at Fender took the Rivera modified amps that he brought to them, and they worked out the way to get those functions to coexist peacefully in the chassis.
Yeah.
And that led to the the Rivera Concert 2, the Twin 2, the Super Champ and all that. That led to that line of stuff. And they were called the Rivera model amps, the Rivera mod amps. But they weren't the Rivera mods. They were the Fender engineers' execution of the Fender mods so that they wouldn't, oh, well, you did this all wrong. The impedance match between the tone control driver circuit and the tone control.
Fender couldn't be putting out something that
right.
Kind of operated like a modded amplifier.
Right. So the Fender engineers basically fixed all the good stuff of the Fender mods out. Mm-hmm. And so when that series of amps came out, really the only one that was the really great one was the Super Champ, which when you pulled it into overdrive, the reverb would drop in half. They figured, well, it's just a little amp, the pros aren't going to buy that. It's just, so it's okay if we sacrifice a little performance to get the overdrive. Well, I bought 2 to play in stereo. Steve Lukather bought 2 to play in stereo. Lucas is like, I'm going to get 2 of these. I'm going to go run right down to the studio now and show everybody my new stereo rig. 2 Super Champs with the EV Force 10 in it. And everybody, all the pros bought that because that's exactly what they wanted. And then on and on and on. Meanwhile, Mesa is transitioning from the Mark I to the Mark II. Uh-huh. The Mark I did not have channel switching. But the players were starting to go, I want to switch from this to this. The Mark I gave you an input that was the high gain input,
right,
and
right.
the other input that was the low gain input. Uh-huh. And of course, the minute that you present something to an end user like that, here's the really hot sound, the solo sound. Here's, you plug in here if you're going to play clean. Yeah, but I'm going to do both. So how do I get both?
Yeah.
And Mesa's answer was, we'll sell you a little box. It's basically a Y box, an AB box.
Oh yeah, they
you
took
plug
care of
into the box,
of the
2 jacks out of the box into both the inputs.
Yeah.
And then a switch that would switch between the two. So when you switched out of the clean mode into the high gain mode, you had a 25-foot antenna between the low input jack and the pedal that wasn't being used that would be sure to feed that country western radio station from
Total Spinal Tap at the Air Force Base.
Yeah, exactly. From the San Bernardino country western truckers radio station would like get pumped full bore into your Mark I. Right. And also make this big loud clack for no extra charge. And so there's the Mark I is really gaining acceptance, and more major players are using them. So more and more up and coming players want one. Mm-hmm. So they place their orders, and while this is going on, Mesa just goes, okay, now we have to figure out a way to get it from the high gain mode to the clean mode and back within the amp without all this Rube Goldberg garbage on the outside. So they're developing the Mark II to resolve that issue, which they did. Mm-hmm. Except when you're playing and you pull it or hit the foot switch to go into the overdrive mode, you get this loud bang that goes along with it. Yeah. Not only that,
it's enhanced by the reverb too.
Not only that, but the overdrive is in a different in a different succession, gain stage succession, order of gain stages in the amp. So it sounds completely different. It's good. It's actually better overdrive, but it doesn't overdrive like a Mark I overdrives. So it's wrong or different, or I don't like that, or whatever you want to call it.
It just wasn't a Mark I anymore.
It wasn't a Mark I anymore.
Yeah.
What's the problem with that? Well, the problem was that Mesa's, they didn't have dealers. They were you bought direct from Mesa. You send them the deposit. They'd let you know when it's ready. They had so many back orders that if you said, "Oh, I don't want it anymore. I broke, changed my mind, the dog ate it, whatever," you could just cancel the order and they would send you a refund, and the next person in line would get the phone call. And the guys that took the amp got a Mark II, the Mark IIA.
Oh, so you're saying some of these people who ordered a Mark I
Got the
just
Mark
got
II.
shipped a Mark II.
And Mesa's pitch was, not only is your amp ready, but you're going to get the new one. The what?
Yeah.
The new improved.
Yeah.
And, oh, sounds good.
Yeah.
They get it. It's got the channel switching is inside. You don't have to have separate cables anymore. Awesome. They get it. Wait a minute. It doesn't sound like the other guy in my band's amp. Doesn't sound like my best friend's amp. Doesn't sound like the amp that I borrowed to play the gig or the session last week. Doesn't sound anything like that. What the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
So there was this immediate blowback. So this is the Mark series being developed in real time.
Imagine if there was Gear Page back then.
Yeah, there was no Gear Page back then, or they would have been out of business. This was product development in the end user's hands already, in progress. Wherein you got the amp, you were mad. Go to Valley Arts. They're the Southern California warranty station. Take it there. They'll take care of it. And then we would get it. Like, okay, what do we do? Okay, well, the reason they don't like it is because of the bang, or they don't like it because of the mid-range, or they don't like it. And so when the amps are coming back, they're scrambling, trying to figure out what the fixes are going to be and what to tell me to do to the amp. And then I give it to the customer. And, okay, it's all fixed now. No, I didn't. Well, but it's better. Yeah, but it isn't, still isn't this. And so there was all kinds of mayhem. That amp was developed and evolved out in the world in the end user's hands already. They let the chickens out of the hen house way ahead of time, and then they tried to chase everybody down.
Interesting.
They're like, "Oh, we'll fix this, we'll fix that."
Yeah.
That gave rise to the various iterations of marks and why they make a distinction between a 2A, a 2B, a 2C, a 3, 4, 5, whatever. Meanwhile, going back and saying, okay, now the first iteration that we improved upon with the second iteration is now an iconic feature that we're going to apply to the amp. And then the same with the next one, and the same with the next one. So it's a Mark amp. It's a Mark II amp. It's a Mark II, 3, 4, whatever, but it's a Mark series amp that evolved over time into what it could ultimately be. But then they started going, hey, we've been around a long time and we have these legacy designs like Fender would do. Hey, you know what? Let's bring back the Brown Vibreverb.
Right.
That was a great amp. Let's bring that back. Let's bring back the Blackface Deluxe. Let's bring back, and now of course Fender's bringing
68
the 68 Silverface Deluxe,
Huh?
the one that everybody went, "Ow, stop that!" But they did it on the basis of the different eras of models that were distinctly different.
Mm-hmm.
The Deluxe amp was distinctly different. The Tweed Deluxe
Yeah.
is distinctly different than the Deluxe Reverb.
Right.
And
a Brown Deluxe.
And they looked different, and they behaved different. They had 2 channels and reverb and all of this stuff. They were distinctly different animals. The Mark thing is something like it's a constant form factor with the basic functions, and it's still, no matter how many knobs they try to put on that amplifier and how they separate them out on the front panel as to numbers of bass, treble, and middle controls, numbers of master volumes, numbers of gain controls, inside there's still that basic clean platform with that basic overdrive stage that drops into the clean platform to make it overdrive.
It
And
happened
all
on the
the
Mark
other
IIA.
knobs are just controls that switch in and out with relays. So it's still the same basic thing. However, instead of having different series that were distinctly different form factors where you see this sort of ongoing development thing, like they've come out with different models, like the Express and the Caliber series and these different things. They're asking you to embrace the different iterations that they did on the Mark as unique unto themselves, and we'll give you this group of marks on this model and this group of iconic marks on this model, and you can't possibly give them all. And I think that what's really interesting about that is everybody, it's not bad in itself. What's complicated about it is everybody has their favorite one. And now what you do by combining these different groups of evolutions into one model, you effectively pit all your faithful into these, you separate them out into these individual groups, and then you throw them into a pit. You guys figure it out.
The battle royale.
You fight it out.
The Mark users, the
Yeah,
Mark fans.
it's up to you to decide whether
Yeah. And
this Switch is the right version of Mark.
The Larry Carlton devotee is not going to be the same as the Lamb of
different
God
person. They're a different person,
dude.
And I'm watching this, going, oh my God! It's like we've got all these hot, excited, hormones pumping box full of guys. We're going to open that trap door, and they're all going to come out. And then we're going to go over here, and then we're going to open this trap door and let all these guys out.
Yeah.
And then we're going to open this trap door and let all these guys out. And it's just going to be mayhem. And so one of the first guys to pop in tonight, one of our regulars, is Steven Sewall, who was one of the first guys on the gear page to leak that the 7 is going to be released any day now, and starts leaking out proprietary information a bit at a time. And now that thread has just gone ballistic, and there's every kind of and Steven is really knowledgeable about the different marks, and he's owned several of them.
All right.
And he's also a guy that has a SIG X, a Deliverance 120. He's had an Ultra Lead. He's got a Power Station 1. He's one of these guys. So he comes from a place of knowledge and experience with all this stuff, and he's like instigated this whole free-for-all on the gear page, and it is nuts reading down and watching these guys going, this is great, this is horrible, I hate you, I love you. And it's a Wild West show, and I'm like thinking, these guys unleashed all this.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And
I thought it was interesting that this time it's like, let's lean into the Mark IIB.
yeah,
It seemed like and I owned a Mark IIB once, and oddly enough, when I bought it, my friend who was working at the store who had it on consignment was talking about how it was a highly sought after model.
John DeShane, I tuned out of that thread on page 10. Steven goes, you're welcome. Thank you. That was awesome.
I don't know if
Well,
that was
yeah,
intentional.
the 2B, they were trying to get the effects loop to work. In order for the effects loop to really work, they needed to have a low impedance send. So they put a cathode follower stage after the overdrive circuit in that to get the impedance down to where you could run it to an effect and you would get a good effect sound in the loop. The trouble is, it made the amp, the configuration that they had before that was a pretty high impedance output tube stage feeding into a circuit that had a pretty low input impedance, so it shaved off a lot of top end in that part of the circuit.
Mm-hmm.
When they put the cathode follower in there, that resolved that impedance complication, and then it got really, really bright.
Oh.
Well, in all the
that's-
rest of the amp, they had done things to brighten it, like the power amp. They had done things post that part of the circuit to brighten it up to compensate. So when they put the cathode follower, they didn't uncompensate the rest of it. So it came out like really wow. And then they had to get, of course, from the B to the C to deal with that kind of stuff. And they were going crazy trying to find the right amount of top end roll off to deal with that. So
I would just love to know for people who really like the 2B, what, like, they, isn't it being talked about as if it's iconic? I'm like, what the hell is iconic about the 2B? Like, it was kind of the cleanest, like, most headroomy combo I'd ever had in my life. And it was just bright, and I couldn't get an overdrive sound out of it to save my life. It was kind of torture. I mean, I kept thinking at the time, like, it's a super stiff, probably great if you want to play, you know, like crystalline clean, smoking, spanking telly licks at, you know, death volume. You know, no breakup whatsoever. I thought, this is an amp that can do that. But other than that, man, it was unusable to me. And I
okay,
don't know
so let's
who's out there going,
right.
yeah, that's
But
the
putting the
sound.
whole thing in context, when that amp came out, there were the guys that were not getting along with the JCM, the 2204 is the next iteration of Marshalls that has 6550s in them.
Yeah.
They were not happy with those.
Yeah.
Brittle, loud,
Sure.
they, you know, and juxtaposed against the
Useless
Rivera
master
mods
volume.
and the other amps that were coming out, Jim Kelly, Howard Dumble, the different sort of multi-function or broader application style amplifiers for guys that were, at that time there was so much studio work. There were the A call guys, and then there was the B call guys, and then there was whoever, any of those guys, if you got friendly with them, they would call you when they couldn't make a date.
Yeah.
But you weren't making the kind of money to buy all these different things, so you had to get something that was
You weren't
workable.
at the cartage stage yet.
Right, and right. So then you had to take something to get it modified. Marshall sales are suffering. Mesa sales are going through the roof, and they're way backed up, but they're running into all these complications about development. They didn't keep it all under wraps until they really had it nailed down. They just threw them. What do you think of this, guys? Well, working, high-paid session guys whose job it is to go in there and do it in one take. Be absolutely sure the producer called this guy because I know he's going to walk in, he's going to pick up his guitar, he's going to tune it, he's going to read the chart, it's going to be ace, and then he's going to bail.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like, what the hell is that noise coming out of your guitar? They don't have that luxury. So this is the stew.
You know, okay, I ordered a 2A and you
Yeah.
get the 2C and you're like, what the fuck's this?
Yeah, you're on your way down.
What the fuck is this?
You call the cartage company. Hey, go
Yeah.
down to Valley Arts, and my new Mesa just came in. Have that delivered to RCA Studio C, and have it all set up and ready. He goes and plugs in and plays. And go, what the hell am I
Yeah.
playing? You know, that was like they caused a lot of heart attacks, and so in this environment, this is where new amplifier development is all percolating up from, and
You said percolating.
you're furiously going through all these kinds of things going, I see where people, I see my clients, I see what they're reacting to positively and negatively, and I'm seeing what I think I can apply to these amps to get them to do this or that. Eventually I went, okay, well, I'm going to make my amp for me, and all this, you know the whole story, but that was really where all the pull pot, push pull, this, that mentality came from. It wasn't about usability and facility and range and flexibility. Flexibility is what a single amp would do by itself if you were a skilled player.
No.
flexibility and usability of functions are what you try to do with an amp if you didn't know how to dial in
All shots are fired.
and interact with your gear. The amplifier is an instrument. I've always said this. The guitar and the amplifier together are an instrument.
So is this multifunction amp equals jivey player who can't?
Well, okay, if you're the kind of player that wants a particular sort of thing, if you want to do a bunch of different stuff, well, generally you would go into a recording studio and as pedal boards developed and rack systems developed, you would bring your basic amp and your basic guitars and some cabs and bring in a rack that you could turn all this stuff on and off with. But when it's an amp, generally what you tried to do, what happened if you gave somebody an amp with a bunch of knobs and switches to pull on, you would just rack your brains trying to figure which ones to push and pull to get it to sound like an amp that you think you wanted. And it didn't matter what the hell else those knobs and switches did. And as amps got more multifunctional, people got more confused. And the way to end the confusion was, hey, you know all those push-pull pots that we put on there? Why don't we add some mini toggles on top of them?
No, leave me alone.
And then we'll put an EQ in there too, and that'll be like the icing on the cake, right?
I don't want these things. No, thank
Well,
you.
but this is what that all leads to. So,
no, sir, I don't like it.
but where does that come from? From the end user's end? Where does that come from? The manufacturer, the designer's desire to please the end user, to give them something they think they will want. How do you decide that if you're not a guitar player, if you're a corporate marketing team trying to figure out what people want?
It's just give and take. You're trying to find the right balance,
and
right?
that means you have to have
you've
an
been
artist
in that
relationship
seat.
and get people to come in and go. But, you know, a lot of guitar players that are really well known and famous and have killer tones. Let's get that guy in here. He'll know what this thing is supposed to sound like. And that guy, he knows what he's supposed to sound like because he came up with a guitar and a rig and a style that all together, this is what I sound like. That doesn't mean he's going to come into your corporate boardroom and say, well, you just add one of those and one of those and one of those and it'll be great. And it'll be awful. And it never fails. So a lot of what the manufacturing side opened themselves up to by offering all these features and functions was the opportunity for the end user to go, I like that. And because I know that you can do that, I know that you can do this other thing that I want you to do. And can you imagine an auto company? They come out with a new model of car. It's got fuel injection. It's got the latest stuff. It's fuel efficient. It uses less gas. It puts out less pollution and blah, blah, blah. And some guy goes, that's a great ass idea. You know what would be better? If you made a thing that you just bolted onto the top of the engine that had like a normally aspirated carburetor, and then you had this level where you could, on the dash, you just yank that and you could switch it, and then it would become fuel injected.
Yeah.
That would be it. So like when I'm on the freeway, I don't want fuel injection, man. I want to burn. But when I'm cruising around town,
my vintage.
I want that old school carburetor, man,
yeah.
because you know what? When you drive by people and they're like coughing and gagging because all this rich exhaust is coming, but that smelled great. You know, I want that. That's, I mean, is Ford going to do that? Is any auto company going to go, oh, yeah, what a great idea.
When Coke came out with their new formula, it's like, no, in a 6-pack, let's also include 3 cans of the old shit. So you can switch.
Yeah, new Coke comes out and everybody goes, blah, blah, blah. Oh, hey, we have the solution. We'll have that 6-pack that's got 3 new Cokes and 3 classics in it. Now you ought to be happy, right?
But then it's, you know, the company's saying this is a new, better idea that takes our product to the next level. But then this idea is that, like, shouldn't it be improving the product? The new idea?
I mean, ostensibly.
So then,
is
like, being able to switch back and forth is like essentially going, well, you can turn off the good idea and go back to the crappier version.
So we released the Deliverance, and it's a stripped down, real focused amp. It's got a specific kind of thing. It's really the essence of the sound of our amps. And here you go. And then after about a year, we were still getting a bit of that tight, dry sort of vibe. And like, okay, you know what? I know how to deal with that. We can give it a little bit of a sort of a natural bounce. And it doesn't really need much. It just needs this little thing that when you attack the strings, you feel that forgiving thing. And why are we doing that? Because every day we're hearing from our loyal followers, unforgiving, forgiving, unforgiving, forgiving, unforgiving, whoosh, forgiving. And okay, so how do we quantify that to give people that
Whoa, Brendan.
forgiveness?
Seriously? Did you see what he's saying about the Mattel toys? They re-release lead-based paint on toys?
For that old nostalgia.
So you get that old... It's like, you know, I mean... There's tonal reasons for having lacquer.
I think he's just picking up on your joke because you can't put lead in children's toys.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, exactly. That's it. You
Sorry,
nailed
I
it.
got no sleep. I'm actually buying into it, taking it seriously. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what though?
Lead paint.
But you're the manufacturer that's designing by committee for whom that comment went right over your pointed little head.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
Amanda.
so good one, Brandon. You
Not legally.
Oh my God, we had some consultants from a soldering equipment company come into our factory, and when we were making the transition to lead-free solder stuff, and he said, by the way, what are you using to clean your boards with? And I'm like, oh, we're using MEK, and he went, you're using what? And I said, we're using MEK, methyl alpha ketone, which it just had been recently really highly regulated, and a lot of manufacturers were just like stopping making it because of the liability. And we were a little bit behind the curve on that. And like the guy, did you say MEK? And he just went woo, 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 like this and ran out of the place. And I went, he says, you got to stop using that right now. And I said, well, but it does such a great job. He said, well, yeah, it does a great job, but you can't use it. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, what do we replace it with? And he goes, well, you get this, and we did that. And
how quick was the changeover?
It was immediate. It was immediate, like the next day.
Yeah. Okay.
And you know, I mean, we're trying to like comply with these regulations and employee safety and blah 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 blah. Well, so anyway, I got a little off track there. We were kind of on a roll, but the whole thing about the Deliverance, right? So we changed the power supply screen supply filter.
This is the series 1. This
is
the original Deliverance.
Right. We had changed the screen series supply filter network from a choke capacitor network to a resistor capacitor network, and that sort of softened the blow and made the thing more forgiving. Retained the tone, didn't really change the overall quality of the amp. It just gave it that little bounce.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I mentioned that in a couple of shows ago that we had done that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the video that you did where I talked about what was.
That's right. That's where it was.
And somebody, that video, I think we released that 9 months ago or something like that. And just the other day, somebody commented on that video. Hey, why don't you put a switch in there to like switch from the choke capacitor filter to the
bro.
like.
Come on.
And I said to Joe, yeah, let's improve the quality and the playability of the amp, but put a switch in there to make it
So you
less
can go back to the
pleasing
thing that
play.
everybody was complaining about.
Right.
We need to preserve that
We
part.
need to,
Yeah.
just like Mesa needs to put the Mark II-B switch in there for the 10% of players that liked the B.
Who liked the B? Like I actually, I'm not saying who liked the B as in nobody liked it. I honestly want to know who likes it and why. Oh, that's funny. Graphite and cigars, you cracking me up. Scott, you too. Yeah. So I was reading through that thread a handful of days ago, and it was interesting. I haven't been back since. Are people excited about the amp, or are they kind of going, why? Can you tell, or is it just a big dogfight?
It's a big cacophony of opinions.
Like I thought I saw a fair amount of people going, "This is gonna make me get rid of my Mark V." Like that's because some of the stuff, it seemed to me like you're starting to creep into that realm of, I think, if we call it analog tube amplification stuff, starting to creep into that realm of, do we try and make it function more like a computer? Right? Like with the IRs and like that many, what is it, like eight spots for each channel?
Well, okay.
Like that's too damn much.
Let's
concerned.
just examine the mentality behind that. And I don't want to really bag on them over this, but if you're
Mesa went Fonzie.
if you're
That's funny to me.
where does that come from? If you're putting firmware in your amplifier so that it could do MIDI management, what MIDI management is doing is it's coalescing all the controllable features that you choose to control, and you arrange them such that you can control them by combining them together under a MIDI program.
Right.
patch,
Let
whatever.
let the main brain handle all of that stuff.
Right. So if you have that, that means you have the development platform to control all these different controllable entities, which are already controllable by dint of having little switches and pull pots and stuff. A lot of those functions change by activating a relay or a what's called an opto isolator, which is an LED activated FET switch or some kind of a transistor switch or something that converts a control signal into an audio result.
Yeah.
Okay. It can be relays, it can be optos, it can be a number of things.
Ham sandwich.
Transistors, FETs, ham sandwich.
Eels.
If you're writing code to manage that stuff anyway, why would you just manage enough of the code to do these simple subgroups but still leave all of this other switchable functionality out of that stew? For example, and I don't know if I've got this right, but I saw two different sort of representations of how this works with the 7, that there's 3 channels, and on the back there's 3 8-position switches for the IRs, and those 3 rotary switches have an LED, 8 LEDs, 1 for each switch position.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing, and then you have the mini toggles on the front for each of the 3 channels to choose the different modes. One guy, who I believe is wrong, said those switch functions on each channel are all MIDI storable.
Okay.
The way I read the manual says You can
just
store
select the
that. You
channel
can
where it's
store
at.
them in MIDI by dint of selecting them for that channel and switching to that channel in MIDI.
Yeah, so whatever you set up for that particular channel in analog world by using the dial, okay, it's preset number 3.
Right.
That's what the MIDI can
And I'll tell you
pick,
why that
is-
makes sense for me that they would do it that way. Because if you change it to a different mode, you also have to change all the knobs to accommodate that mode. Because like a Mark 2B and a Mark 7 or whatever combination of those 3 different voicings are,
Yeah.
you're absolutely going to have to change the tone controls and the gain settings
Sure.
to accommodate that voice because it's a totally different structure.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
not that different, but it's a different enough that you have to manipulate the controls around that. So of course you wouldn't make that MIDI controllable as an individual switch because you didn't make the knobs controllable to make those necessary changes along with it. So that's why I think I'm right about the fact that the only thing that's MIDI about the channels and those mini toggles is that you have it set that way in that channel and you MIDI switch to that channel.
Yeah.
Now about the IR thing, you're selecting between 3 different knobs, one assigned to each channel on the back, so that you could ostensibly select a different cab for each channel when you're playing an amplifier. Well, that's pretty out there. I don't know who does that, but even if you do, and you do find a use for that, why is it on the back of the panel where you can't see it? Isn't that something that you would want to do?
Because
on
there's
the
too much shit on the front.
Well, but you would want, I would think, access to that on the front, and you would only need one knob because then you could write that into a preset. And see, I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong or that they should do it different. I'm just saying from my perspective, how I see it,
Oh, it's hard to satisfy everyone with that kind
you
of
can't satisfy everybody.
thing. Yeah.
Who can you satisfy, and what do you what about those players' demands are you trying to satisfy, trying to address, trying to resolve? The problem you're trying to solve for those people is to get a handful of really great sounds out of the amplifier that they already have the expectation that they understand what our amplifiers sound like, how they perform, the personality that they have, the way the gain structures are set up. I like all that stuff about it. I just want a little easier access
Wouldn't it
between
be
the
interesting
channels to get here, here, and here.
if at some point the next Mark iteration becomes a stripping down? Wouldn't that be interesting? Instead
Well-
of every next one has to be an arms race for more feature
But
sets?
see, that's just the thing. That's
You know?
exactly what we're talking about. It turns into an arms race if you choose to try to compete with that mindset that says every time you add a switch, the end user is going to go, "I like that. Can I have another one that does X?" And that's always what happens.
Yeah.
And
Because I wind up feeling like if I, these days, if I need a rig to do that much crazy stuff, there are perfectly suitable software solutions for that sort of thing
yeah,
that probably do it more elegantly.
but I think the end
You
user.
know, I'm kind of like, I like to keep, tube technology in that world and just let it be what it is. I don't need it to evolve to be, operated by a computer or have, 8 IRs available for each stage. I mean, for me, it's moving out of what I like about tube amplifiers.
I think end users are idealists, and
Sure.
they see this. Wow, this is this is
Curmudgeonly
like-
idealists
eh,
sometimes.
Sometimes, but sometimes they're the giggity. Like I like where this is going,
Yeah.
and they want more.
Yeah, yeah.
Power station. You know what would really be great
Oh, yeah.
if
yeah.
it was stereo, and had amp switching and cabinet switching, and while we're at it, let's just make it wet, dry, wet, and put 3 power amps in it, and lovely. But
$7,000.
what they don't say out loud, but what they are saying in here is
The new Mesa Axe Effects. Thanks, John. That's
without
exactly what I was thinking.
without making it any bigger or any more expensive.
Yeah.
So
right.
the power station, the PS2 has got a 50-watt power amp in it, and the PS100 has a 100-watt power amp in it, but it's done with two 6550s because you can't there isn't room for 4 power tubes. If there was room for 4 power tubes, well, if there's room for 4 power tubes, then you could make it a stereo 50 watt, right? No, because now you need another output transformer.
Right.
Where does that go?
Right.
And well, you could just make it a couple inches wider, 5 inches wider, okay? 5 inches wider and 4 inches deeper for every channel you want added.
And heavier.
Oh yeah, but you know, another reactive load in there wouldn't take much space. As much space as another transformer. Exactly as much space as another transformer. Oh, and another fan. Oh, well, I just assume you take out all the fans because I hate those fans. This is the dialogue. This is the imaginary dialogue that is implied in this sort of avalanche of unreasonable requests, and why people do things like that. Why people keep running back to the manufacturers and hitting them with these stuff. Why? Because we enabled them to do that. We spoiled our kids.
I wonder, when was the last time you saw...
We told them that we could do these miraculous things, that we
was-
demonstrated that we could do them, and now,
Let's talk about this on two levels.
okay,
Let's talk about this industry-wide. Let's also talk about it within the framework of Fryette VHT. Okay, so here's the question. You ready?
I'm just yelling at us musicians. Okay, if it comes across like I'm yelling at you guys, no, I'm not. I'm getting excited, and we'll get into where the excitement level is coming from, because what it really actually boils down to, create a forward movement and evolution, sane evolution of model design. But we'll get back to that later.
When was the last time that you saw something released like this that was a big deal, that in general checked most people's boxes?
I've never seen one.
Kind of interesting, huh? Well, maybe in Axe Effects land. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Because I think I remember seeing when the Axe Effects 2 came out, people generally were really happy with that sort of thing. So maybe it was when a particular technology was trying to come to its maturity. And then once it does, there's a tipping point where you can add too much. Like, in a way, tube amplification, like it did reach its maturity. Like we know how to get what we want out of them. In
Right.
general, right. So trying to tack on too many things, and
I like
starting
Amanda's
to lose focus.
Amanda's comment. Oh, it's okay. You're not yelling at me.
Hey, Amanda, I and John, I see you guys talking about having people in your family that aren't doing very well, and I just want to say I'm sorry to hear that. That really sucks, and I've certainly been there. So, sorry guys. Godspeed and all that good stuff, and cheers and drinks. We started off with Irish car bombs tonight, didn't we?
We started.
Did you feel it? Did it ever touch you?
Well, I'm probably feeling.
I felt it for about 20 minutes.
I'm probably feeling less inhibited to go on a big rant about whatever it is that I'm ranting about. But okay, so
You have the loose tongue?
It logically follows that the modeling solution brings you all these different qualities and characters of amplifiers and effects that you would conceivably wish somebody would put all in an amplifier, and that's not possible and practical. It does that, and that's fantastic. And I think it delivers pretty well on that aspect of it as far as a tool goes. But an amplifier isn't a tool. It's one half of the instrument, being the guitar and the amplifier. That's a totally different player-driven dynamic than selecting up a sound and cutting a track with that sound. Because
Amanda, you made me laugh again. That's
double
funny.
the rant with bonus extended. All right. That looks like That sounds like a workable formula to
Oh,
me.
Tom, you have results of a CAT scan coming up. My man. Wow, that's all heavy stuff, guys.
Yeah, in Hendrix's case, it was almost like he was playing the amp more than the guitar. I do feel that a lot of the time.
When I was a kid and I would hear him do his live feedback symphonies, I used to just think, the thought was, he is electricity incarnate.
Yeah,
Like he's just
it's bubbling
casting
off.
spells with, you know,
It's bubbling off of him.
how, yeah, yeah.
It's just bubbling off of him.
And like, okay, this is like the wand, the guitar, and it's just the swirling vortex that he's standing in the middle.
And that's why
with the amplifier and, and the guitar.
That's why Pete Townsend
played
and
the whole
Jeff
damn
Beck and all
thing.
these guys are looking at him going, how are we ever going to compete with that? Because that's not about technique.
No, it
That's
wasn't.
not about skill. That's about being an alien being. And how am I going to emulate being an alien being? And I think that's where you draw the line. That's intense. The reason that we're talking about all that and the overview of this whole episode being about just make everything switchable, but that's been done.
Yeah.
It's being done. It's now it's being refined and evolved, but it's not contributing to the improvement of the instrument.
Yeah,
it's
the
just
Mark 7
contributing
need to
to the
exist?
it's contributing to the availability of the tools and the flexibility of the tools. Wonderful. But at the end of the day, I've been examining this and running this over in my mind for the last several years, and what I keep coming back to is the flexibility, and I've been saying this for years, flexibility and malleability or manipulable.
No,
blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
manipulability. Let's do that.
Manipulability,
Convoluted. and-
yeah, are
as we
not
can.
the same thing. What are we trying to accomplish? We're trying to get an amplifier that makes a relatively seamless transition from one mode to another, not 3 different things or 5 different things or 6 different things, but kind of like it's always been my goal that an amplifier transitions seamlessly from as clean as it can be to as overdriven, as saturated as it can be, and that the user selects the bulk of those. The user sort of determines how to compartmentalize the 3 basic sort of parameters of that you transition from and to get from the cleanest state to the totally
But you know what I
overdriven
think
state.
you might do in your amp designs a little bit, and you've never said this as such, but I think you kind of design each amp for a particular type of player, rather than going, we're going to make an amp that will do everything for everyone.
Let me
Because
just
the Deliverance is definitely like that.
let me just sort of refine what you said a little bit.
Sure.
Exactly what you said, only not making a different amp for that different kind of player, but making the amp, making the design either something that you manipulate more to transition from that stuff, or you're the kind of player that doesn't need all of those little crutches to get you from this state to this state to this state. You just intrinsically feel it in the instrument,
That's
and
what I like.
and that's what you do. You use a guitar volume. You use
Minimal.
but you use it some. You not all you have to do is turn the volume knob down 1 notch, and you're using the guitar volume.
Mm-hmm.
And you use different picks. You use picking dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
you use touch and feel.
And then it's also my preference that I like. I don't like, I'm not in U2 or something. Like when I'm playing, I don't typically need different tones that are so starkly different. Like I prefer my clean and my overdrive to still basically sound like it's the same amplifier. I do not like channel switching amps. It's like, whoa, it's a completely different character,
I agree with that.
And the
I've always
deliverance is
designed
like-
everything that way so that they.
But that's just me.
This was back in the day when the magazine reviews really sort of dominated, published paper magazines,
Yeah.
Guitar Player magazine, and all the different ones.
Yeah,
They-
one time
they-
it was, what was it? Guitar World, Guitar for a
Player.
Practicing Musician,
Yeah.
Guitar Player, Vintage Guitar was out at that time.
Mhm.
Like, that was the heyday.
And then all the European mags and all
yeah.
that. But the one thing that the reviewers would say about our stuff is that you could transition from a clean sound to a medium gain sound to a high gain sound without accidentally getting transported into another universe.
Man, that's it. That nailed it. That's what I love.
That's
That's the
right.
deliverance to me. Actually,
Right.
who said that?
That's probably Art
Art.
Thompson.
I knew it was Art. It had to be Art. That guy nails
Well,
it.
he's a tequila drinker. Of course he could say that.
He was always one of my favorite dudes writing reviews. He's funny, too.
He is.
Yeah.
He's very understated. He seems like he's angry with you, and then he says something under his breath, and he's like a crack up.
Oh, yeah?
It's like, okay, he's a sick guy.
I think I met him once at
Yeah.
NAMM and thanked him for all of the reviews he'd written. I think he's great. Authentic now. What's about to happen over here on the...
Ready, you guys?
Yeah, you know what? Can we bring that in and watch it go down? We're about to have...
I think it's too close.
Too
I think-
close?
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna do it here. Here's the stomach filler.
a stomach filler.
More stomach filler. We
Ooh.
actually
Oh, that or something?
We ate all
actually-
your snacks.
we
before
actually
the show.
raided the snack store.
Yum.
But
those are
we'll rate
good.
it again. We'll rate it again.
Kelly, I love that. I just need an on switch. Pow! I love that. That rules.
Freeman and I have joked about that for decades.
Build it. Build
Power
it.
switch, volume control, shut up.
Shut up. Here's your guitar. Play something.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. I was gonna do it on a dare. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll do this. I'll give you an amp to try. You take it out there, and then you tell me what it needs after that. And then I would give them an amp with a power switch and a volume control. Oh, wait a minute, what are you doing? Well, you said you wanted to tell me what you wanted the amp to do, so I gave you a clean slate.
Complete blank canvas. I would like to be able to adjust the mid-range.
I think we can manage that.
Can we
yeah.
handle that?
I think we can accommodate you there.
Turning down the bass would be helpful.
But if we give you a mid control, then it's going to change the balance of the treble and bass. Well, can you make those adjustable? Well, we can work on that. Yeah, sure. How about this? I don't really like where the bass knob is. It could be.
Uh-oh.
This is Leo Fender level.
Mm-hmm.
Guys going to him, going, yeah, you know, I would have loved to have been there when some guitar player went, you know, I got fined $50 by the band leader because my mid-range was like interfering with the trumpets. And so,
Well, do you remember?
and so he scooped out the mid-range so I wouldn't get fined $50. I would have loved to have been there.
I remember reading Bill Carson's book. Bill said
Who's Bill Carson?
he was an early Fender guitar player who played regionally. I
Wow.
think he was in like those road like Texas swing bands, and he had a real early 50 Strat in it was red, and he actually wound up working for Fender later on, but he wrote a book about the whole thing, and he was saying that in the early years he would be doing his gigs, and Leo would come to his gigs, and get up on stage and start monkeying with the controls behind him while he was playing.
Oh yeah, right.
Like, Leo, you can't do this.
I like Jimmy Ray Hawkins. Free hands with every Deliverance purchase. That's actually an inside joke.
What about hating hands?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Well, it's really when the Super Champ came out, and I've told this story probably a number of times, but when the Super Champ came out, I called up Paul Rivera, and I said, "Why can't you make the concert sound like that?" And he just like chuckled, but you could hear the frustrated.
Oh, okay.
You could hear the frustrated in his voice, and when I heard that, I went, "Oh." He's just like the waitress that when she comes to take the plates and you make the joke, "Oh, how was everything? Oh, I really didn't like the steak. Can you bring me another one? Only your plate's empty."
Right.
She's heard that joke so many times. It's not funny. She just wants to smash a plate on your head.
Right.
That was the vibe that I got
Thank
from
you.
Rivera. What do we got here? Oh, I'll tell you what we got here. We got these new cocktail glasses. Look at those. That's very Art Deco.
Oh, yeah, it is.
We decided that we didn't have any really cool looking cocktail glasses. So,
Rock glass. Yeah, rock glass.
So,
cocktails on the rocks glasses.
What the hell is this? What are we drinking here?
Greyhound.
This is a Greyhound.
What's a Greyhound?
My favorite drink.
It's your favorite drink?
My
This is it's
favorite.
basically vodka and grapefruit juice.
That's it.
Oh.
But I love
With the lime?
I love using that particular
Oh,
Zabroka. That's the I usually drink.
okay. So this is a Greyhound with Zubroka vodka,
Bison grass.
Yeah.
bison
Then-
grass. It's even got a big piece of bison grass in there. I can't see if there's any
Oh, yeah, look it up.
There's one inside.
tooth marks on it,
It,
but
it, it was illegal in the United States for a while. It just came back.
and it's got a slice of lime on the top. And is there anything else?
No, that's it.
All right.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
This smells like
Oh.
grass out in a field, doesn't it?
That's delicious.
Just smell it.
That just
Doesn't it
tastes like
taste-
more than the sum of its parts.
You know what it
Yeah.
smells like? It smells like a Christmas tree.
Zabroka
Actually, you
really
know what?
Good with the grapefruit.
Vetiver
Oh.
and honeysuckle.
Mmm.
You can smell.
It's like you're out in the forest.
Damn.
There's no sweetener in this, huh?
I have to
Put
smell
a
that
little,
vodka.
little bit of dash of the maple syrup.
Dash
Because
and maple syrup.
I don't know how sweet this grapefruit was because this is like a
Pink grapefruit.
organic, like a
Organic pink
cold-
grapefruit.
yeah.
Oh, this is marvelous.
to batch the different sweetness. So I just
I'll have 3 more.
This is awesome. Yeah, it's not quite like that Cobra drink that Amanda had, but it'll do. What's that snake drink? I can never remember what the hell it
Oh,
was.
snake wine.
Snake wine?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys talking about quitting social media? Yeah, I basically did that too. It's pretty great.
Boy, have I
Yeah.
really cut down on that a lot.
Give me a few brain cells back. Love me some earthy tasting shit. Hell yeah, that's why I love single malt scotch from Isla. And mezcal. A glass of dirt and smoke, and I'm a happy camper. I'm gonna run to little boy's room.
Wait, you gotta hear this.
You gotta tell him a joke.
I have never seen a grown man smell a drink and say, "Can you smell the honeysuckle?"
That's me.
That's graphite
all
and
over.
cigars having a piss on you and
vetiver.
So I know a couple of you took that the title of this episode to indicate that I was saying something about all the switchable madness that's going to happen on whatever may come to fruition here in a relatively short period of time. But I think what's happening is I'm evolving towards an end goal, and sort of imagining what a next product is going to be, or a next design or an evolution is going to be. It involves a lot more than just adding a switch, adding a feature, taking out a feature, changing a feature. Because one of the interesting things that is developing as a result of all of our peers in the industry, and they're all friends of mine. It's not like we're competing dog eat dog trying to murder each other. It's just that everybody has their own idea of what the evolution of this of their design ethos is, or their next product development is, and all that. And when you work in isolation, you kind of don't have the perspective, that kind of perspective of what is out there, what are people trying to accomplish, and what are players responding to. You don't really get that so much. One of the really interesting, cool things that happened during the Synergy Development Project was that after we completed the basic Syn 1, Syn 2 architecture and the power amp to go with it and all that, and everybody started, all the companies that were associated with the project were throwing out their design ideas for modules and so on and so forth, was that we were involved heavily with the design of the platform. And once the platform was all sorted out, then we started imagining what our modules were going to be like. A lot of the other companies that were out there, they were already being...
Hold on. When you're doing that, when you say that you weren't imagining what the modules would be like, were you not thinking about tone at all, or feature sets? Were you just trying to come up with a platform that you thought, okay, whatever we design will work optimally with this?
Well, the very first thing is what is the next iteration of the modular concept going to be? Is it going to be progressive? Is it really going to be a big jump forward, and a much more open platform upon which you could really try a lot of new things? Or was it going to be a little more retro, where it was, where the backward compatible part of it was really, really important? And I was one of probably the loudest voice for the progressive position, which was, while people think they're going to appreciate the backward compatibility of it because they have bits and pieces, existing modules for the old platform, or other versions that were licensed to other companies that made modules that were arguably good or not good, depending on which one you got, depending on the sound you were trying to get, and so on and so forth. I thought a clean break and a fresh approach going forward would give people not only people some more options, but it would give from the design side, would give us more opportunities to really expand the concept. But there was a real strong contingent that outweighed my single voice for the backward compatibility element. And I just went, okay, well, that's what it's going to be. And that was the mission. And the Syn 1 and the Syn 2 and the Syn 30 and 50 were all designed with that ethos in mind.
So it was that broad. That was the thinking. It was that broad.
It was that broad.
Okay.
Once that's established,
And big.
then they can go out to the other manufacturers that want to participate in the program and submit their designs for modules. Great. having been involved in the development of the platform, okay, you may have won the progressive versus retro argument,
You're such a malcontent.
but
Like,
but I'm going to make sure that I'm going to find a creative way to get my progressive agenda worked into at least our modules, if nothing else. And so the beauty of doing the platform first and then laying back while everybody else goes whole hog with their module development designs, that was great because we had other work to do on all of our other design projects.
yeah, right.
You know, I mean, arguably they wanted to have our modules sooner, but I just felt like there was so many module design projects in the works
Do you know
from
how many
everywhere.
there are at this point?
No, I don't right off the top of my head. What I do know is there were enough that I didn't really feel like that we needed to rush our modules to the market.
That's been a pretty great project, though.
Yeah, it has
It's
been a great project.
pretty damn great project.
So I was happy to focus our energy, our design and development energy back into our products and do the smell test, get a sense out there of what people are reacting to with the modules that are out there and what they're capable of. And then I had some basic design ideas and some basic platforms started. I just let them sort of, what is it when you get the seeds germinate? I just
germinate,
I
yeah.
let the designs germinate a little bit.
Yeah.
By the time I was ready to go after our module releases, I had figured out a way to expand on the idea and add some additional sort of features and qualities that weren't really things that the end user could manipulate so much, but they were ways to enhance the performance and playability of our module designs. That's because I sat back and waited. I wasn't like in this big rush to be at the head of the pack. I thought we could come around.
That's tricky.
Come around from the back, and one of two things would happen. Well, in either circumstance, if we tried to push way ahead and get things out first, could potentially get swamped by all the other stuff that were coming out of there. And if it died, it might be quiet. On the other hand, if we wait until a lot of the other stuff is already out there and all that big hubbub has died down, and then we come out with, oh, geez, I never even thought about doing anything like that, then the two possibilities are, it would be great and it will sell really well and people will really like it, or it will totally bomb. Either way, there's a risk. So we chose to go the long way around the track.
Yeah, being the early adopter, being the early guy there can sometimes help you in terms of you're the defining person just because you were simply there first.
Yeah, and what we benefited by being involved in the development of the platform that a lot of the other companies weren't involved in is knowing where the limitations of the platform are and maximizing the modules.
But you were actually even able to do it by sitting back. You were able to observe, all right, here are the ones that are really working, here are the ones that aren't.
Right.
And I mean, you're just basically gathering intel. So when
Right.
it's time to sit down and do yours, you're like, okay.
And one of the things that we did was when we submitted the first one, which was the Ultralead, I think, all the other modules have this little cathode selector switch inside.
Wow.
It comes from the factory set one way, but the end user can set it two other ways.
They set is it at the factory? Is it set to the best sounding way, and then you can like have it switchable to sound crappier? Is that basically how it?
You could say
Let's
it
make
that
everything
way.
switchable.
I wasn't going to say it that way, but I mean,
Come on, it's the malcontent.
but that's really at the end of the day, you would set it the way the designer of the module felt it was optimum, and then you would give the end user the opportunity to say, no, I think this is optimum, but they don't know how the design behaves. So how could they decide it's optimum? It might be optimum at one particular tone control setting and gain setting, but then all of a sudden you're like, gee, but when I turn it up like this, I have to put it
God.
back to the factory setting because it's a little tubby.
That reminds me of going through the Kendrick books and doing all the mods on blackface amps, and when I had no idea exactly what one was doing to the other, you know? So it's like, okay, disconnect the negative feedback. I didn't know what that meant, but I could do it.
We don't have an echo problem, do we? Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned echo.
No, I think they're talking, it's just, they're talking amongst themselves.
Oh, okay,
I
great.
don't think it was
Talk
us.
amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so anyway, in a way, you're right. You definitely, what we call it is conceding our engineering to the end user.
So you're like, okay, you figure it out.
Yeah. We made it to work like this, but we
Yeah.
gave you the opportunity to like mess up all that aforethought and design ingenuity for your own evil ends, whatever they may be. And because what we really want above all is to give you an opportunity to make it sound as bad as possible, so you can send us an email and tell us the problem that you're having so that we can tell you, oh, we'll just set it back to the factory recommended setting and you'll be home free. But I don't really like it that way.
Thanks, guys,
That-
for chiming in and letting us know.
That's okay. That means you don't really, that module isn't really working for you. We understand that. We're not trying to make everything for
See
everybody.
what Sean's saying? That's exactly it, Sean.
Sean.
Here's this fine-tuned machine. Let us give you a switch to screw it all
Yeah.
up. It's called the suck button. Here, customize it, you know?
Well, you know, on a high performance car, you know, you have the button where you can set the suspension, and you know, the guy that can really afford to buy that car is not a professional driver. It's just like some hedge fund dude that like can afford to spend
Oh, well, yeah.
$750,000 on a car to have a
Right.
button to where he can set the suspension so that when he goes around the curve fast enough, he can do a quadruple barrel roll off of a freeway
But
and be
that's-
dead in 10 minutes.
That's very interesting because, you know, I haven't driven many high-end cars, but I do know that it was, for me, when I had the opportunity to do something like that. Isn't that amazing?
Elderberries?
Oh, I got honeysuckle and vetiver. Okay.
It's already been brought in.
Oh, Roscoe, absolutely, man. The Isle of stuff. Lafroig, Ardbeg, Lagavulin, Bruichladi, all the good stuff.
Omit the switch.
What the hell were we just saying?
If it don't fit, you must acquit.
I quit. Yeah. What were we just talking about? The fine.
You were talking about the high-end car analogy.
Oh yeah, and you're like, oh, okay, this is the best money can buy.
Right.
So that must mean I'm thinking the ride is like, okay, the car looks bitchin' and it can go fast, and the ride is going to be the most cloud-like cushiony thing. Oh no.
Oh, no.
No, that's designed so you can
No,
feel
if
a
you're
dust
really,
particle in the
if
road.
you're really a professional,
Oh,
if you're really a professional high-performance car enthusiast, when you hit a bump, you know whether you drove over granite,
exactly. Yes.
an obsidian,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
or no, that wasn't
Right.
a rock, that was a rat.
In what year it was deposited?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It came from Mount Fuji.
Right. Mount St. Helens.
That's the kind of freaks that buy cars like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's kind of a godsend, really, that the 7 came out now, because when you were out of the room, I was talking about the mindset and how we not develop and evolve a development, but how I can even imagine putting it where I'm going to put my headspace into imagining where it goes next. And I've been having this conflict, which is my gut feeling is that we've learned a lot from the time, for example, I'm not naming any names or making any statements or
You're about to, in a sort of roundabout
making
way, I can
news,
tell.
anything like that. But say, for example, the Ultra Lead. We've learned out of the different models of amps that we've made. We've learned things about the behavior, things about the manufacturing, things about how you players interact with them, and the comments that you've given us. And we've done all of these.
Switch for the touring circuit. That's what you're getting at. That's really what you're.
We've also come to understand that the original definition of the design of a particular amplifier is still valid. It's still relevant. It's still the essence of the design of the thing. It's why we built it in the first place.
Right.
So by going back to that and saying, we still hold these truths to be self-evident. We still hold these design ideas to be relevant and relevant today, even though the original design was done decades ago. It's still relevant. It's still true. Players still react to amplifiers and guitars this way, and we've sort of established and validated that those ideas are legit because the videos that we've done where we've gone through and carved through history and played with old designs and revisited things like that, like with Joy Brasler. Hey, you haven't looked in this amp in 28 years. I haven't looked at that amp in 28 years. And in 2 minutes I looked in there and I understood exactly what the MO was at that time. And here you are telling me it's still relevant to your playing experience. That's all I needed to effing know.
Yeah.
And so my conflict then is...
we hold these two to be self-biasing.
I love that. I love that. So the conflict is how to take all that knowledge and optimize it into a working platform that frees the end user of the inspirational commotion of trying to figure out what we intended for them to do with all those switches and buttons. And or what am I doing wrong? Or I like this but I don't like that. And the other half of, well, do we reduce the serviceability or the usability of it by streamlining some of those experimental things out? No. We optimize it because we figured out which way it works best to do what. When you plug your guitar in, regardless of whether you're playing a low gain, medium high, extra high, totally saturated, way over the top, no matter what you do with that instrument when you plug it in and hit the E chord the first time, all I want is the hair on the back of your neck to stand up, the hair on your arms to stand up.
Oh my God! You remember when the first time you had me over to play the Master 100, the Sound City?
Yeah.
Oh,
that was
I will never forget.
That was the classic. Eddie. That was the classic takeoff of the Eddie Murphy bit with the woman when she goes, "Oh, you got her,"
I don't remember this one.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I knew all the classic Eddie Murphys.
It's just like when you play that E chord and you go, you got him. You got him.
God.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's what you reach for. When somebody does that, you don't take a picture of the circuit and examine what pickups are in the guitar and look at the wood on the neck to see what happened with that guitar player. You take a picture of his face.
That's an interesting point though, because some
and you
people
go, that guy just like had his mind blown.
But some people
and he won't even be able to
actually
tell you why, except that it happened.
But some people, and all of this stuff is valid, right? Some people, like when they're getting excited about a new project, it's all up here. It really is feature sets and things like that. I don't care about that at all. I'm in the camp of what you're describing.
Well, but that's what I was saying.
And one of you guys said this up here too, where you were like, Which one of you said it? Like after I play a couple chords, like if I like the amp, I forget what it's called anyway. It's totally that.
Well, but that's what I was saying. That's what I was saying before about it's we and other manufacturers preloaded the player with the idea that if you don't like it this way, you might like it that way. But the essence, the base essence of the instrument is what it is. You're a Strat player or a Les Paul player, or you play this because it's the right instrument for this circumstance, and you play this because it's the right instrument for that circumstance.
Jimmy Ray's on point.
What?
Big iron, big sound, big thrills.
Well,
in general, amen on that. For me anyway.
It's big, even if. But let's just not conflate big with loud, okay?
Sure. And I'm not, actually. Because I know better at this point in my life.
Well, but in the past, that has been kind of, it's sort of been, well, you necessarily must because you can't play that loud. But let's put a low power mode in the amp. Well, what does that really accomplish? Let's talk about that for just a second. This is a big thing for me. A little amp has a certain kind of a footprint. It's small. It's sort of to scale, but it's small, and it has a limitation in that when you need to be moved another 5 degrees to really go, it doesn't have it. It doesn't mean it sounds bad. It means in the context that thing is working for you, it's working.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it can push you off a cliff.
Right.
If you're not right on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
An amp with a bigger footprint will make you go, but there's a chance that it's going to be too loud. But it has this quality because the transformers in it are big and they behave differently than little transformers pushed hard.
Sure.
So the fix for that part is an attenuator, but only a good one. And I'm not trying to sell an attenuator. I'm just trying to make a point. And the point I'm trying to make is that when you have a big amp sound that has big tubes and big transformers in it, you have to scale all of those elements down to get them below kill volume, let's just say, in order for you to have the same playing experience playing it. And you can do that with something like the Power Station. But if you turn down the plate voltage on the tubes, or cut the number of tubes in half, or do a power output configuration that runs it in Class A triode so that the gain is down and blah, blah, blah. All of those steps that you're doing to bring down the threshold of kill power is you're preventing an otherwise really capable output transformer from performing its one little task that it absolutely must be able to perform in an amplifier to get to that threshold of performance. And that is, you have to push it to saturation. You have to. And anything less than putting the full power capability into it that it was designed for is going to basically make that part moot.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to capture that and scale the whole thing down is to turn the volume down after the output transformer. And the only way to do that is with
attenuator.
There are two ways to do it. Attenuate it, or lock it in a room and go in another room.
Yeah, right.
That's it. Those are your options.
Oh man.
So
hey, answer this one here. And by the way, Tom, I have an amp that's a 45100 circuit too, and I haven't played through it in like 4 years at this point. I'm really excited to get back to it and check it out. But Steve, what do you think of this in terms of Fryette sales?
Okay, I'll answer that, and then I want you to bring Brent Tom's comment up after that. Have you noticed a decline in amp sales as more players moved in? No, absolutely not. There's actually been an increase. Why? Because if there's one thing that Synergy did for us is it raised our profile, and more people heard that module and like, just like modelers. Wow, I like this. I want to get the real thing. I want to hear the real thing. I want to experience the real thing.
Yeah.
And that has been wonderful. So that's basically given. It's done two things. It's given it's given the deliverance stamps themselves wider acceptance, and it's also increased the pressure to release any new models that you might be thinking of.
I'm not saying anything.
We're not saying anything.
So which comment did you want?
The Brent Tom one, now down near the bottom there. More down, right there.
That?
It's weird.
The one about the 45-100.
It's weird. It seems to have less gain than a plexi circuit, but more sustain in a weird way. That's absolutely not weird at all. That's the essential key. It's how we perceive gain. When you hear a really loud amp, your brain kicks into protect mode.
Sure.
Your brain is trying to protect you from overloading your ears. So it tries to limit the information that's coming in, and your nerves register pain to your brain so that you'll be warned that something bad is happening to you. The only problem is it's good and it's bad at the same time. And as a species, we run into all kinds of circumstances where I love this. I'm going to do it one more time because it feels so good. And
Right.
no, I won't die in 5 minutes.
Right.
And you'll die in 5 minutes.
Right.
But the thing about it, it's weird. An amp seems to have less gain, but when you dime everything, it doesn't sound fizzy gainy, but it sounds like it has more sustain and it has more of everything. And there's nothing weird about that. That's exactly what happens because each stage in the amplifier is doing its job in the cumulative behavior of all those stages working together to produce this sound. Not every amplifier does that in that kind of scale.
Okay.
That's why some amps.
So let's address the 45-100.
Well, some amps, the reason that we associate with that amp sounding good doing a full right-hand sweep is because the full right-hand sweep doesn't take you over the edge anywhere. It's like the right amount of everything. It's just a total coincidence. Nobody designed a JMP or a
state of
Plexi.
grace.
Nobody designed it to do that.
Yeah.
It just coincidentally, when you did this, that was the result, and you went, That's a total coincidence. Now, post that coincidence, how do we capture that lightning and bottle it? Which has been, ever since 1967,
By bottle it, you mean like turn it down to non-kill volumes?
or capture it in such a way that you can do it on demand. And that's what separates a modeler from an amplifier that's part of the instrument. Because when you want it, there's no modeler that you can do a right-hand sweep and reach nirvana. Sorry. That's my best argument against modelers. You cannot do a full right-hand sweep and go, ah! You can't do that. You could go, I'm going to get my commercial done. I'm going to get my my track done. I'm going to get my songwriting project finished, and I'm going to get paid for that. The movie's going to come out. I'm going to meet the producer's schedule. You're going to do all of those things.
Shit in 25 minutes, once they hear this thing, I can change the settings and output it again, and I don't have to mic anything up or play it again.
Right.
And it's a great tool for that.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's
But you're not
just-
going to lay awake at night and go, oh my God, I hope I can do that again tomorrow because that was so awesome. Right? Right?
Yeah.
Okay, what else we got? Let me see. Let's highlight the Sean Summer one.
Here, hold on. Let me.
You got one? You got a good one?
Which one?
Down the bottom.
Is it down here?
Yeah, very bottom. Right there. Boost the boost, but be sure preamp pedals became more of a thing then. It's funny about boost.
You said boost.
I think the phenomena of putting a boost in front of an amp, it's really been around a long time, since the mid 60s. And without knowing it,
What, a humbucker?
well, no, actually a boost pedal. Because they've been around for a really long time.
But I mean, a humbucker sort of like a higher output one.
well-
in a sense, Stone Age version. Sending more shit to the front end of your amplifier.
Les Paul Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
Hot pickup, amp that you crank, you do a right-hand sweep, the guitar pushes the front end just a little bit farther. That's all you need. You're all done.
Yep.
And then, oh wait, you know, when I put the Echoplex in between the guitar and the preamp, it kind of does the same thing. While the Echoplex had an extra 3 dB of gain in the front end, it pushed the front end of the amp 3 dB more, caused the very first tube stage to start to collapse.
Start to buckle at the knees.
Yeah, and over time, players have just sort of intuitively decided that if you boost the amp from the front end, you get a little more of that saturation, and that's true. The very first gain stage in the tube amp doesn't really do anything except amplify the signal so that you can boost all of the subsequent stages. So putting a boost in front of the very first stage is a totally legit way to go, I want that first tube to do it too. But you don't always want it to do it the way that it normally would do it. And that's why people have used a variety of different pedals to do that, like using boosts where you could roll off the bass, using boosts that add a little extra distortion, using pedals that, tube screamer, that sort of jack the mid-range out a little bit more. In the right frequency range, we need that boost. We don't want it across the board because it'll get flatulent, it'll get brittle, it'll do this, it'll do that. So those pedals have sort of been popular because they do it just the right amount of what we need to get done to get it to do what we want it to do.
Yeah.
Is there a way to do that without using a boost? There absolutely is. Does anybody do that? No. Why not? Because they hadn't really thought of it, really. There's the one thing that I want to say about amplifier development and evolution of tonal behavior of amps is there are so many things going on inside amplifiers that we just forget about. There's just so many things that you could possibly talk about and experiment with and play with that you just don't really go, oh, you know what? It's almost like you have to have a Rolodex in your head to pull them up. And one of the most enlightening things that we've done in the last year or two is just we made a habit of having our friends come over with amps that they like, that they want to have a look at, that we want to have a look at, and have a gander, and we already know what they're like inside. We already know how they behave, but what we don't necessarily do is go, now that I have all this experience and all this stuff under my belt, you know, if any of you are creatives in whatever business that you're in or job that you do,
Probably everybody here is one way or another.
when you're in a creative mode, you're doing a lot of creative things simultaneously. Until you get the bulk of that creative work out of the way, once that's out of the way, I'm sure if any of you deal with writing and composition, you can proofread a document 800 times, and every time you proofread it, you're going to find a missing comma, You're going to find a period that's a comma or a colon, or you're going to find two spaces between a word, two words.
Colon.
You're gonna you're gonna find something every single time. Same with photography. Same with anything. You're gonna find something. This is the last thing. We do it all the time with our graphics guy. It's okay. We're all done with this. And then 2 hours later, oh no, we're not quite. There's this little. We always find something. It's the same way in amplifiers. Once the larger bulk of the creative work is done, these little things start to pop up. These little spikes. What about me? What about me? What about me? Oh shit! And some of that stuff goes back a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. Mm-hmm. So by doing these little videos where we're just basically partying, wasting time, having our friends over, and using that as an excuse to not do the real work, we accidentally discover that we are doing real work because we're curating ideas that are sitting on a shelf in a closet somewhere that we haven't, you know what I mean?
Right, absolutely.
And then we go, hey, if we did blah, 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 and then we all pat ourselves on the back and go, that's brilliant. And no, it actually isn't brilliant. It was just us being incompetent for 10 years. Or too busy with our heads under some other pillow somewhere. This is what's really exciting to me about this period of development right now. And if I'm being a little cheeky, I'm going to say why it's fun to sit back. And I used to read this comic book about race cars, stock cars. And there was this kid who was determined to be a stock car driver. And he and his dad bought an old Chevy and they turned it into a stock car, and they became self-taught DIY mechanics, and they kept working on it until this guy finally won a race. And during this whole process, his dad is giving him a piece of advice, and the advice was just lay back and let all the monkeys make the mistakes. And I've always lived with that, and that sounds derogatory, but really the process there is when all of your peers are like racing towards the line, sometimes it's okay to just go, I'm not in a hurry to get to the finish line. Today, I don't need to be at the finish line. Mm-hmm. I'm having, I don't know what's going on with me, but the last week, I've had like about 24 Charlie horses on my left thigh.
Oh.
Every time I turn around, I'm getting a Charlie horse.
This is some performance.
Yeah.
Real.
Maybe I need to put more grapefruit in my Greyhound.
Yeah, you need a banana. So you have potassium.
There's something to be said for laying back and watching the rush to center stage, and you just go, you pick up things. So it's really been sort of instructive for us to do.
That's a different. That's a
Gin.
This is different, I've been informed.
Cold gin.
Henry.
There's something that's been really instructive for me to do these videos where I have my pals over and look inside stuff and experiment with it and try all these things. So if you guys that post these questions and come up with these crazy ideas, if you think that we're not listening to that, we are absolutely listening, because someday there's going to be a Tuesday when we go, hey, you remember when Kelly said blah 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 blah? Let's just sort of evaluate that. Hey, you know what? There's something to that. So if Sting did an interview years and years ago,
it's gin and grapefruit juice.
Where the
no honeysuckle.
Where the interviewer asked him where he got his ideas for songwriting, and he said, that my job as a songwriter is to stay on input.
Yeah.
To keep my antenna out there.
Yeah.
And that's where the most creative things come from. So I've been having thoughts. I've been having these thoughts, and I've been getting a lot of inspiration from doing stuff that just looks like off the cuff and fun.
You've been doing real big stuff behind the scenes that you're not going to talk about today.
Well, it's
really
because
big
it's
deal.
still a work in progress, But
Well, but it's very much in progress.
It's very much in progress, but it is a work in progress. And the fun part about it is having gone all through these other scenarios and platforms and ideas and experiments and got all that stuff out of the way and put it in the Rolodex back there. There's this freedom to go. There's no law that says you can't go back 25 years and explore a thought that you'd forgot you had.
Well, hey, Mesa's doing it. Mark 2B, let's go!
Now that was just mean. So what is this?
Just taste it, you'll know. It's grapefruit juice and gin, Hendrick's gin.
Stomach feeling.
So,
Well,
thank you.
Well, I love him.
There's been a request for Nico-chan to make an appearance. Is Nico-chan, as
You know
Scott
what?
said, is Nico-chan drunk enough to come on the show?
We're actually going to have a special episode where Nico-chan is going to come out and blow you guys' mind sideways. I guarantee you.
I don't think so.
Nico-chan's like, speak for yourself.
My colonoscopy of the last week.
Nico-chan had a colonoscopy?
Last week.
Poor Nico-chan.
Would you all like to hear about Nico-chan's colonoscopy?
Yeah! Come on, Nico-chan, come on. Got a little microphone for you here.
Well,
We got the mic.
Nico-chan, Nico-chan.
We got a yay. We got a yay.
Uh-huh.
talking about
Robert, what's
And not
up?
only that, by the way, has anybody noticed how good everything looks and sounds today?
I don't know. You
And if
watch
you
it?
haven't, you should. And one thing I would like to
should.
one thing I would like to say is our buddy Michael Nielsen. You know who he is.
Shout out to Michael. He's a man.
He came over. I asked him to come over and like give us some.
Come be the third head on our Ghidra.
Yeah.
And he's awesome.
So he came over ostensibly to sort of give me some pointers on tweaking and setting limiters and compressors and EQs and things like that. So he came over, but you know what? Actually, he spent about 20 minutes doing that and spent another hour and a half talking about presentation and lighting and contrast and use of space and stuff like that. So we incorporated all that, and I'm just thrilled with the. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but everything sort of looks crispier and clearer and more colorful, and all those things are a direct result of
reading this whole thing.
of Michael coming over here and going, you know what you should do? You could put a switch on it, and
Well, okay, he didn't say that. He had recently kind of upgraded his setup for his own videos because his channel's awesome, of course. And so he was hipping us to the whole thing. And basically, you copied him completely, right? That's the same lighting kit that he has.
well, he sent me the
So
link to
thanks,
it. What was I
Michael.
supposed to do? I just they can ship it in 24 hours. Here, order this.
I love that guy. Yeah. It's colorific and crispier. Yeah, it gave us definition behind us.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not just one big bleh.
Yeah. So this is where we find out that Joe doesn't like green onions.
Oh, man, I can't handle that.
I didn't know. That's why I put it on the side.
No, you're wonderful. Thank you. I'm the
This is-
preamp sugar daddy.
This is the best baked potato.
Well, so here's the thing. We're probably not going to play guitar tonight because we have no reason to. But,
Oh, we have a reason to.
well...
We
hold
have a
on.
reason to. We
Hold
do have
on.
a reason to.
Hold on.
Well, you're supposed to ask me what's the reason.
Well, I'm in the middle of a thought. Hold on.
Thought?
Yes.
Thought. He has a thought.
You're gonna wear that plate on your head in a minute, mister.
Please. Please, Daddy.
Some people have chimed in and said that the overall volume is lower than it has been typically. but we worked it out so that we can actually play amplifiers in the room and not overload the channels on there. So everything is dipped a little bit, but it's for a reason. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, we're having competing ideas here. Some people want to celebrate Nico-chan's colonoscopy and have her come on, like Scott, and then we can play guitar too, and like check the levels.
We don't really need to play guitar that much. I just want to play one E chord and have you hear how wonderful
Do
it sounds.
it!
And then
we'll celebrate the colonoscopy.
And then screw it. I could care less about the rest of it.
Great, let's do it. Let's do it through your rig with the Deliverance, and then we'll do the guitar thing, and then we'll celebrate Nico-chan's colonoscopy,
All right. Well,
and then we'll get the hell out of here.
I'm gonna do a song.
You're gonna do a song?
I'm gonna do a song that celebrates how happy Nico-chan is that her colonoscopy is over with. Right?
Are you gonna sing?
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad. Over the colonoscopy. Over the colonoscopy. Over the colonoscopy. All done with my colonoscopy. All done with my colonoscopy. All done. All done. All done.
Now the punk version. Go! Slide! Oh boy, here we go. You're gonna play. You're about to play the Heartbreaker solo if I don't like rein you in here.
I don't have the sound for that. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
All right. That was
Nico-chan! It's colonoscopy time!
the Cornholio Shuffle? Hell yeah, that was the Cornholio
What
Shuffle.
people want to hear about my colonoscopy?
Well, why don't you just talk about it and we'll find out what they want to hear about it. Welcome, Nico-chan!
Yay! Woohoo! High five, Nico-chan.
Yay!
Oh yeah. Straight back from your colonoscopy world tour, and you're feeling mighty fine, mighty cleansed.
What? Well, okay.
So, how was it?
What? 1, 2, 1, 2, test, 1, 2, test, what, test, what? Everybody can hear?
Sibilance?
Sprint.
Testes.
1, 2, tick 1, 2.
Testes.
Well, it is important, everybody. If it's over 50,
Get screened.
you gotta,
Gotta get your screening.
Do it. If you have a insurance, then insurance pay for it. You should do it. And then I did it last year, and then found a tooth polyp.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and I took it, and then I went to sent it to a lab, and then came out as nothing. Um,
Excellent.
yeah, but the doctor said, come back in 1 year
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that you're okay.
Right.
So that was the first time I got tattoo in my body.
Oh.
It's not on my body, it's in my body.
In your body.
I can't see it except you have to put the camera in my, butthole. So then you can see my tattoo. Personal tattoo. That was my first
They
tattoo
put a little
ever
they
before.
put a little mark in there or something.
Yeah. I have a tattoo in.
They tattoo
in
the inside of your colon.
colon. Yeah.
It's
Wow.
kind of like when people modify a Marshall or something like that, and they put their signature into
Yeah,
it, and they
exactly.
date it
Yeah.
so that you know.
Dave was here.
You know
Yeah,
how
yeah.
you know that really ratty mod that made your amp sound so bad. This guy did that on that day.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, doctor did it to my colon
Mm.
last
Right.
year.
Spray paint.
So, what does it look? Yeah, that doesn't look like that. It was like a child kind of drawings thing. He doesn't have any artistic talent. But
Oh.
yeah.
It's like hieroglyphs inside a cave.
yeah, kind of. Well, anyway, so he said come back in the 1 year. So I did last
Okay.
week,
All right.
and then
The preparation for a colonoscopy is fun, huh?
that was hell.
It's hell on wheels.
That was hell.
That's the worst part.
It was a burning my. It was really burning.
It was
Amanda,
really burning.
Take that, face tattoo people.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that was really burning my butthole, and couldn't touch it anymore. So,
Anymore.
couldn't do it. Couldn't touch it.
There's a song in there.
And so I decided to take a shower.
Just decided.
I decided to take a shower.
just for my butthole.
Oh, okay. All right.
Every time I had to go.
That's
go
called
to the bathroom-
self-care, Nico-chan.
Yeah.
Yes.
In Japan, there is like a the
Burning
washlet
love.
there. I think it's people went to Japan knows there was a toilet with the butthole cleaner.
Oh, like the
there.
bidet.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
bidet.
Kind of
Yeah,
thing.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So,
Which I got really used to the last time we went to Japan. I was like,
Then you come back here and you're like, we're heathens.
yeah, totally,
Yeah.
It's been
totally.
yeah. He's stuck in there for 30 minutes, wasn't it?
I didn't use paper towel. I didn't use toilet paper for like 2 straight weeks. When I came back, I was like, "Oh, we be wasting all this paper. This is
Right.
ridiculous."
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're wasting the water then.
Oh,
Yeah, but it's so fine.
You liked it, huh?
I totally like it.
wine is fine, but whiskey's quicker. What's that line?
Okay,
Well,
so fit a bidet into that.
So
I'm not gonna.
What?
All right.
I wish
Nico-chan.
I wish I had that.
Wine,
but
wine is
I
fine,
didn't
but
have
whiskey
it.
is quicker. But a bidet will last all day.
Okay. All right.
Hello.
Hello. Meanwhile,
Well, me
back to your butthole.
Everybody want to hear this? I thought this is a music show.
No, this is great because if your butthole doesn't work, you can't make music anymore. You get to check yourself straight
I
into a
know.
cemetery. So this is
Yeah.
important.
So I did a last poopy thing. I thought, but
Okay.
it wasn't last, and then this comes out. It's another one and another one and another one, and I couldn't touch my buckle anymore, so I had to wash it. But it was really burning,
Uh-huh.
burning, and burning. But
Can you describe that in haiku?
haiku, touching ass.
She's doing it.
Nico-chan never shies away from a challenge. Yes, Amanda, it's the feel-good portion and the family portion of the
Well,
show.
I have to. I never learned haiku, so I'll think about it next
Okay,
time.
all
Okay,
right.
we'll get a butthole haiku
Yeah,
next episode.
anyway, so I did prepare everything, and I went there, and I got the gas and anesthesias, and put me sleep. It was like kind of feel I'm in heaven, but
Heaven.
yeah, and everything done, and then came out the result, and they found another polyp.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
So did you get another tattoo?
Yeah, I got another tattoo. So, yeah, and then.
Was it just below the previous tattoo?
I have no idea. What it is, but the
I wonder don't they just like keep them in a row?
But they sent to a lab, and then the result came back, and then doctor said, okay, this is, you don't have to worry about it.
Yay!
So like he said, come back in 3 years.
Oh, you don't have to come back in a year. You get to come back in 3 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then in that 3 years, one is better. I mean, the result was came nothing. Then come back in 5 years. And then that one doesn't have any problem. Then I don't have to come back in 10 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I got the older butt treat. Yeah.
Yeah. So those
and-
are all your butt adventures for the last week.
I was kind of concerned because there's a lot of pictures he took, and there was like 16 of them he took, and then like a last polyp sections and this polyp section, and then there's a big one there.
That was kind of scary.
Yeah, said internal hemorrhoid.
Oh. That's good news, right? You'd love to hear that.
That was kind of sad. I had a hemorrhoid in my body. I mean, a butthole. So I asked
An internal hemorrhoid.
Internal hemorrhoid.
Wow.
What is that? I asked doctors.
It's a new one on
do
me.
I have to do something? Do I need treatment? And he said, no, you don't have to do anything. If it doesn't bother you and you can live not knowing there, then you don't have to do anything.
Okay. All right. So that's pretty good
I have
news.
hemorrhoid.
Right. Yay! You grew a hemorrhoid. Yay! You did it!
You know what I find fascinating about all this?
Inside
As-
grapes.
As soon as she started talking about the hemorrhoids, we lost 5 viewers and then gained 5 new ones.
Yay!
So
Oh
I think
my
we.
God. Yeah.
But
So you're healthy, Nico
I
Chan.
think so, yeah. Except my internal hemorrhoid.
What did I just tune into?
What's up?
Hey,
Billy?
you knew what you were in for when you came here. I
Yeah.
don't want to hear any of this.
If it pop up from my ass or something, then I have to think about it. But besides that, I don't have to think.
Okay.
It doesn't bother me right now, so I'm okay.
You're
I'm
okay?
Yeah.
So are you gonna go back to being like a raging alcoholic,
yes,
Nico Chan?
of course.
Okay. All right.
I can drink. Yeah.
So what are you drinking tonight?
That Greyhound with honeysuckle.
Oh, the honeysuckle
wow.
vetiver
The-
Yeah,
Greyhound.
That's Greyhound. That's great.
Well, that's isn't that like a dream come true for a bee?
Yeah.
Yeah. Honeysuckle.
Honeysuckle. Yeah. Honeysuckle. Yeah, I've been sucking honey. Why are you guys so laughing about that?
Because it's very funny.
Because it's great stuff.
It's a bee's job. It's sucking honey.
That's a lot of work.
Actually,
It
that's
is,
you
it
know
is
what?
like
You know what?
Sucking honey.
I forgot you were a bee momentarily. My bad. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, that's my job.
Yeah.
Sucking honey. I don't know. You guys laughed the last time too, but
Because
I think it was the emphasis. It was like sucking honey.
Yeah, exactly. It was my inner Beavis coming out. You said fucky.
I don't know. You got this a music show? No.
Occasionally.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Occasionally. Yeah.
All right. All
Yeah.
right.
It's a free show that we do on YouTube. So you get what you pay for.
Yeah. You pay your money, you take your chances.
All right. So I'll report my colonoscopy in 3 years then.
Okay, that's
All right.
wonderful.
Well,
All
thank
right.
you for your report. We really appreciate it. I'm glad that you're
healthy.
healthy.
Yay.
Congratulations on your second tattoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't see it, but.
And
yeah.
your inside hemorrhoid? That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, well,
next
maybe
time,
you could-
Next time I tell the tattoo that Joe's name inside of my colon then.
Until you get a
Yeah.
picture of it, and we'll have a picture of your tattoo.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Everybody would like to see that.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe
I know I
XXX.
would.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
All
yeah.
right.
That's perfect.
Bye, people. Bye.
Bye-bye, Nico-chan.
Bye bye. And with that, party people, we're kind of at a wrap.
I
melting
think
point,
I think I think we can get the hell out of here. I think
we
I think our work is done here.
Let our poor suffering friends go do the rest of their evening. Nico John, please take care of your ass.
Congrats.
Oh, love you guys.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us. We
Yeah.
appreciate it, and I hope we were able to like sort of give you some insight without giving it away the store too much. We're going to have more to talk about in the next couple of weeks, and it'll be interesting. But
And one thing that I want to add is that one of our friends was asking about how the D120 Series 2 handled low gain. And so I have a few videos coming up that will go 1, 2, 3, just like the D60 that I did last year, where it's the D120 in kind of different stages of gain. So we'll have that coming out.
So Joe is doing a really great job of demonstrating the Deliverance amp transition from the cleanest mode to the most overdriven mode, and demonstrating that it isn't actually changing it to do this, changing it to do this, changing it to do this. It's just, I'm turning the gain up, I'm turning the
Just
master
playing
line
differently.
down, I'm just playing differently.
Composing differently.
Right.
And then the
That's-
amp will take me everywhere I want to go.
Which has always been the goal, and it will continue to be the goal. So thanks again for hanging out with us.
John, so the takeaway is don't buy the Mark 7?
I
can't say that.
I will never
Can't
say
say
that.
Yeah.
They're everything.
I want people to buy the Mark 7. I want to hear how it...
It's a little compact amp. I mean, that amp has a reason to exist. The people that like that, they want it compact. They want all this performance in this little package. That's if there's anything that's been consistent about Mesa over their entire existence, is getting a lot of performance in a little tiny box.
I love Mesa. I've always loved Mesa. So I just want to say that. Like, the Mark 7 isn't an amp that I need for my stuff. I still own a Mark 4. I've had a lot of Marks. I've had a lot of Mesas. I get along with them really well. I love them.
Of all the amps that they've made, I think that I actually kind of like the 2B, but see, I was a high watt guy, so that
makes sense.
That in your face
Endless
top end thing,
top end, yeah, and
that
headroom.
sort of made sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they fixed that, I went, you fixed it to death.
Oh yeah. But then it totally took another turn.
But their whole thing evolved out of, let's take a Princeton and make it 100 watts and get infinite gain and sustain out of it. Mm-hmm. And everything developed from there.
Yeah. But we can talk more about that at some other point.
Sure can.
All right. Wrapping it up. Heading on down that road.
Hey, Joe, great to see you again. Thanks for coming and hanging out.
Hey, great to see you again, as always. My friend.
See you in a couple of weeks.
That was probably a crappy high five, but that's okay. We love you guys.
Those are my best kind of high fives.
Yeah,
The
awesome.
crappy ones.
Yay. All right, we out?
Yep.
All right, you guys. Good night.